Howdy everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be covering Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Shall we get started? Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, published in 1865, was written by Charles Dodgson under the pseudonym Lewis Carroll. The story follows the adventures of Alice after she falls down a rabbit hole and ends up in Wonderland. This iconic piece of children's literature has influenced both art and literature ever since it came out, leading to the creation of many varieties of Wonderlands in all kinds of settings. Any story that has the characters being transported from reality to a magical world of wonders draws inspiration from this novel, such as The Wizard of Oz and The Chronicles of Narnia. But let's start at the beginning and see what Victorian artists thought of Alice in her curious Wonderland. As I was researching the artistic side of the story, I was shocked to find that not much was really done with it at the time. So I decided that instead of finding any old piece of fairy art from the time and then attempting to draw very convoluted connections to the subject matter, that I would alter my view just a touch. Instead of paintings, I decided to look at illustrations done by two different artists during the Victorian era. The first illustrator and creator of the image you see here is Sir John Tenniel. Already an experienced illustrator, Tenniel provided the illustrations for Alice in Wonderland when it was first published. Tenniel had a very distinct style that could be recognized, and he also had a tendency to base his work on elements out of his environment, which is why many of his illustrations resemble well-known people or aspects of society, either as requested by Carroll or his own initiative. Tenniel's original drawings were often reproduced through woodcuts, which gave it an even more distinct and unique feel. The second artist I looked at was Arthur Rackham, who published his illustrations at the tail end of the Victorian era in 1907. Maria Popova states, as a child he would often stay up late, drawing by candlelight under the covers, and Alice in Wonderland was among the books that most stirred his imagination. It is no wonder, then, that he would become one of the most influential in reinterpreting Alice in Wonderland. Popova also commented that Carroll's Alice was so enchanted Rackham, perhaps precisely because it bridges reality and reverie, plunging the reader into the extraordinary hidden behind the ordinary. Later in the article, she goes on to state, a number of elements made Rackham's visual interpretation a turning point in the history of both the Carroll classic and the art of illustration. First and foremost was his distinctive aesthetic at the intersection of the sentimental and the grotesque, sensitive and dark at the same time, like a Neil Gaiman story or a Patti Smith song. Not wanting all the intricate details of his artwork to get lost in translation, Rackham also decided to take a more modern approach to reproducing his illustrations. He would take the photographs of his illustrations and have them printed separately instead of using woodcutting style of reproduction. Moving forward in time, I have decided to look at two very different interpretations and representations of Wonderland in film. The first is the television show Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. A spin-off of the ABC series Once Upon a Time, this series follows an older Alice who had been to Wonderland many times as a child, but was locked in a mental institution later on because of it. After escaping back to Wonderland, she embarks on a new journey, searching for a genie she had fallen in love with the last time she was in Wonderland. Alice is older in this series than in the original novels, and is much more clever and resourceful. She is also no longer the selfish and know-it-all child she was in the novels. Wonderland has also been given an update, with a much more wondrous feel to it. While it doesn't avoid the darker parts of Wonderland, the show does run on an underlying theme of hope and knowledge that anything is possible in Wonderland. The show includes many of the iconic characters from the novels, including the hookah-smoking caterpillar, the murderous Red Queen, and the famous Jabberwocky. I also decided to look at Tim Burton's famous adaptation from 2010. A very whimsical yet dark representation, this movie has all the features characteristic of a typical Tim Burton film, with a heavy emphasis on the strange. However, this is Wonderland, and strange is its middle name. While not really following the story of Alice's adventures written by Lewis Carroll, this movie offers an additional tale that succeeded in breathing life back into this timeless tale. I hope you all enjoyed this video on Alice in Wonderland. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know, and be on the lookout for the last video in the series over Dracula. Until next time.